but we're grateful for the technology that will allow us to be together. This might even be a little more convenient for some folks because I know we're all really busy people, so hopefully you are able to zoom in from wherever you're at. So to get us started, we're going to do some quick introductions. Our staff has not changed since last year, but some of you may be new officers, so we will introduce ourselves. My name is Taylor Dwyer. I'm the Director of Student Involvement in GrizLife. So in my role, I'd primarily oversee student organization operations, event management, fraternity and sorority advising, as well as campus-wide traditions such as Family Weekend and all of that fun stuff. So I'll go ahead and let my team members introduce themselves now as well.
Hi there, my name is Beth Ostendorf. I'm the Assistant Director of Student Involvement, and my role involves advising the Student Entertainment Board and Student Congress, and I also plan the FC on the Town series in a typical year and do some other things to support you all as student organization leaders and members.
Sorry about that. I'm Kendra Sejas, and I'm the administrative assistant in the CSI. So I support Beth and Taylor and all the different student organizations and clubs.
Awesome. So I'll go ahead and get started. An overview of today's meeting. We are going to do some refreshers on the co-curricular guidelines for the fall semester. The week leading up to the semester starting, we held 3 different Q&As for student leaders. But not all of you were able to attend, so we are going to refresh you on those as well. We're not going to go into super detail because we did that in the Q&As, but those guidelines are available for you to review and ask us questions at any time. We're also going to refresh on student organization policies like we do normally each semester. We're going to share some resources available for student organizations for the fall semester. Talk a little bit about our Grizzly event series, GrizLife training, and then some budget information for organizations that request budgets. So for the co-curricular guidelines, these were released a few weeks before the school year started. And when we say co-curricular, what we really mean is anything outside of classroom. So we mean student organization events and activities, campus-wide events and traditions, all of those things. So co-curricular, if you were not aware, now you are aware, it means student organizations as well. And those guidelines were released a few weeks before the start of the semester. And we have been working hard to make sure student organizations follow those as well. When you look at the document, it is a blue document. So if you remember getting, I know you've got a lot of emails, but when you got this email, our specific guidelines were in a navy blue document. So that document is split up by a few different sections, and the first one is expectations for participants. And these listed right here are inclusive to all of those expectations. One is that attendance on the GrizLife Presence Checkpoint app is required for all and any in-person events and activities. Your members and participants should be bringing their FCIDs to every FC or student organization event activity to be scanned in. Organizations are responsible for learning how to use this app and scanning for attendance. And we have some GrizLife trainings coming up that you are not sure how to do this, you can attend. But we also have some tutorials available for you that Candra's going to explain later on. Masks are required at all indoor events or activities, period. If food is served, participants are expected to wear masks to the event or activity and only remove them when actively eating or drinking. For outdoor events or activities, masks are encouraged but not required. If you can ensure at least 6 feet between everyone at all times, masks are not required. But based on any outdoor activity I've been a part of or witnessed so far, that has not been the case. So in those cases, I would just go ahead and say that masks are required just to be safe. All participants must remain 6 feet apart at events or activities, and anyone who fails to comply with these guidelines, such as wearing a mask or maintaining 6 feet between individuals, should be asked to leave the event or activity and may be found responsible for violating college policy. Some additional guidelines for hosts. Organizations sponsoring events or activities are encouraged to host gatherings virtually whenever possible. We also released a flowchart for you all to help determine what we mean by whenever possible. But essentially, if the mission of your organization is not compromised by hosting something virtually, then that is the route we prefer you to go. When virtual events and activities are not possible, in-person is acceptable as long as the sponsoring group and participants follow the precautions outlined in the co-curricular guidelines. Organizations must ensure participants follow these at their events or activities, must follow minimum capacities identified for spaces on campus, be cautious of planning any events or activities that are more likely to spread germs, such as singing or laughing. Now, we're not like banning singing or laughing. I'm not in the business of policing that. But if you are planning something where like the sole purpose is to sing or to laugh, that might just be something to reconsider. Make a plan for participants to enter or exit events or activities while maintaining social distance, and consider keeping doors open for indoor events or activities to increase airflow and decrease the sharing of germs through door handles. Organization members and participants should wash hands or use hand sanitizer frequently. Ensure access to cleaning supplies before or after each event or activity. The CSI has some cleaning supplies available for checkout, but you also have access to the sanitation stations across campus. And this is our preferred method because if for some reason you can't make it to the CSI to get your supplies, you have those stations available everywhere. All door handles, seats, tables, supplies, and other frequently touched surfaces must be sanitized before and after each event or activity. So this is why you need to ensure access to cleaning supplies before your event. Some additional guidelines for hosts. Events and activities with food are permitted if hosts follow safety precautions. Food with shared containers is prohibited unless it is served by Parkhurst or an approved outside caterer. Groups can also consider prepackaged grab-and-go options. So what this essentially means is like ordering a bunch of pizzas and everyone jumping on in, that is not permitted. That is a shared container. However, if you have a caterer that serves it, that's okay. Or if it's a prepackaged snack, like you go to the store and buy those prepackaged chips and everyone gets their own little baggie of chips. Those are instances where that would be okay. Please keep in mind that Parkhurst has jurisdiction over the Student Center. So if you're hosting anything in the Student Center, you are required to use Parkhurst regardless. Event or activity guidelines apply to LLCs, Greek homes, and Greek suites. All in-person events or activities for these spaces must be approved through the GrizLife event approval form. Written approval from the president is required for college-sponsored events that will be open to off-campus visitors. If the event hosts wish to seek approval for an event with off-campus visitors, you must first contact the CSI. So what we're essentially saying is if you are an organization and believe you have an exception to this policy, contact us first. We do not want student organization leaders. I'm reaching out to President Prather. He's very busy, and we can help field those, responses or requests as to what is and isn't acceptable to pass along to the president. Similar to off-campus visitors, events off-campus are not permitted unless the approval of the college president and documentation of risk mitigation protocols. If organizations wish to seek approval for an off-campus event, they should first contact our office as well. The event or activity guidelines are in effect until the college announces they are no longer in effect. We have some less stringent policies and procedures that we have created, but we are not ready to put a date on that. If anything, we've learned throughout this past year is dates are arbitrary, and so when it is safer to do so, we will implement this as well. Student organization event activity hosts must complete the event registration form on GrizLife to request to host an in-person event or activity, and this includes meetings. Student organizations are encouraged to host recurring normal operational meetings virtually and only host in-person gatherings for special events or activities. When hosting an in-person event or activity, student orgs must have an advisor or another faculty staff member present. Student organizations will be required to complete a post-event reflection form on GrizLife after any in-person event or activity. And if any member or participant is not complying, hosts can explain the measures taken to address that participant in this post-event reflection form. So if there's just one person that's causing trouble and everyone in your group is doing what they're supposed to be doing, but it's just this one person, the form is a great place to let us know about that issue. So if that gets back to us, we know it wasn't the chess club as a group that was causing problems. It was really just this one participant that wasn't complying, because then we can hold that student accountable through our student conduct process. So that post-event form is where you're going to tell us what went well, what didn't go well, and if there were any students that were just giving you a really hard time with the guidelines. We've got this question a lot, what constitutes as an event or activity? And in our eyes, an event is any activity or event sponsored or endorsed by the organization, including those that occur on or off campus. This includes anything that your organization is representing, hosting, or sponsoring. So An easy way to answer that question is if the answer to the questions below are yes, then the in-person event or activity should likely be registered on GrizLife. And those questions are, am I or are we participating in this as members of our club? Is this something that, does this look like a meeting or event for our org to an average student? If two of your organization members are grabbing coffee together or going out to lunch together, that is likely not something that any student's gonna look at and be like, oh, that's the chess club. What we're saying is, are you participating in this as a group? And if yes, then this is something that you should be registering on GrizLife. The last thing I want to say about co-curricular guidelines is we've also gotten some questions about, why do we have to register meetings too? And that is because we are trying our best to encapsulate a comprehensive tracking of where students are spending their in-person time. So if a student in your organization were to test positive for the coronavirus, we can then go into our software and see, oh, they were at chess club's meeting for an hour on Tuesday. And that just helps us mitigate risk and figure out where exactly that student may have exposed others. So it is a safety precaution. And so that's why meetings, you have to register those as well if you're hosting anything in person. Moving on to some organization policy refreshers. These are our normal policies at all times, so these should not be super surprising to folks, but we're gonna go ahead and jump into these. The first slide is our active organization policy. This is just saying that you must submit a list of officers, members, and advisors each semester to the CSI via GrizLife to remain an active organization. We ask you to do this at the beginning of every semester. Soon you'll be getting an email from GrizLife that's going to ask you to transition your organization. What we want you to do through that process is to confirm your roster is correct, your officers are correct, and your organization information is correct. You also need to let us know changes in officers during the academic year as soon as possible. So let's say your president steps down from your club in October and elections are until January. We need to know, obviously, that your president has changed, and you will also do that within GrizLife. You are responsible for making sure your constitution, standing rules, and bylaws are updated and in use. We have a constitution template that you can use if you need assistance with this. Something we have learned throughout the past year as we've really tried to hold organizations accountable to this is that many clubs are using a very outdated version of their bylaws, maybe even the one that was created back in the 70s or whatever. And if you don't even know what your bylaws are, then that is a key indicator that this is not happening. So we are happy to help you ensure that your standing rules and your constitution are up to date. If you do not comply with this policy, you may lose college recognition. This is just simply, we need to know who your leaders are and who's in your club on at least a semesterly basis. The other policy I'll talk about on this slide is the solicitation policy. So if you want to charge admission, collect donations, food or money, or ask the community to provide free or donated items to an event, both in person or even virtually, you should gain permission from the college. Event registration form for these events must be submitted at least 2 weeks prior in advance of the soliciting. So if you have an event, a virtual or in-person event, October 1st, but you plan on asking for donations like September 1st, this is saying that that event approval needs to take place 2 weeks before September 1st. This form is actually now combined with the event registration form on GrizLife. We got a lot of feedback that there's just too many processes, room reservations, event registration, solicitation. So we actually got rid of the solicitation form. And now those same questions are asked just on the event registration form. So they are the same form. So hopefully you are happy about that. We tried our best to make that an easier process for you.
All right, next up, some reminders about calendaring and reserving spaces. Please remember to keep an eye on what else is going on campus before you choose a date and time for your event. We don't want 2 organizations or 2 offices planning events at the same time and lowering attendance at both events. So you can check the calendar on MyFC and the event calendar on GrizLife to see what else is going on different dates that you are considering for your events. And please make sure not to schedule over already planned programs, especially big things going on campus. But if you can avoid scheduling over any already planned programs, that is ideal. Your advisor will need to reserve space for you via the online calendar system, We call it EMS. So you can look at the calendar and see what spaces seem to be available and when they're available, and tell your advisor which space you'd like to use, but they will have to make the reservation for you. And they will need to do that at least 2 weeks in advance of your event. So please make sure you're planning ahead with your events and sending your advisor like your first space preference and then a couple backups if that one is not available, so they can get it reserved in plenty of time. We have added a question on the event registration form that asks about event space, and it will communicate that with your advisor. So if you haven't already talked to them about event space, that form will give them some information that you give us. It'll pass it along to them, but it's best if you can just email your advisor and talk to them about space reservations. We will not be able to approve your event registration request if you don't have the space reserved. When you talk with your advisor about which space you'd like to use, also be sure to let them know if you need anything for setup, whether that's sound or a few extra trash cans, tables, chairs, all that kind of stuff. Let them know which of those things you'll need, and they'll include that on the space reservation request, because facilities oversees all of those things as well.
We also added to the event registration form a question that asks you for your space preferences. So if your advisor has not requested space yet, they will get a copy of your event registration form and be able to see your preferences. But it is preferred that you reach out to them earlier than that form to let them know. Catering and food. If you need food or beverages at your event, please contact catering at least 2 weeks before your event. If your event is in the student center, you can only request food from Parkhurst. So you can't bring in groceries, Subway, soda, or whatever to your event in the student center. But for this semester specifically, please ensure you're following the co-curricular guidelines for the new guidance on food for fall 2020. And I just gave you a brief overview of that a few slides ago. Posting policy. Posting signs on campus is allowed only on approved bulletin boards. You may see down in the student center, there are some bulletin boards that say approved for on-campus groups only. Those are spaces where you're allowed to post your signs. Large banners and butcher block signs are permitted on the strips in the dining area, residence hall lobbies with GrizLife's permission. So you should not be just putting stuff up in the residence halls on your own. You'll need to reach out to myself to ensure that GrizLife approves of those. All publicity must be removed within 24 hours of the event. If there's any super common thing that doesn't happen for posting, this is probably the most common thing that we see happening, or at least not happening, is it's not uncommon for us to walk around the student center and see a flyer from an event like 2 weeks ago. So we really encourage you to take down your publicity within 24 hours of the event. Some of you work really hard on those things and we feel really bad throwing them away, but we will continue to throw them away if you do not take them down on your own. Any exceptions to this policy must be requested in writing to myself. So anything like special, like you want to do a weird, fun, cool, eye-catching display in the middle of day mall, or anything that's basically not a flyer or a poster beyond social media, I don't need to approve your social media stuff, should be approved by me. Please receive permission from departments to utilize their space for publicity. So if you want to put table tents on the dining hall tables, that will likely not be approved this year because that's almost impossible. But just know that's an example, like you would need to reach out to Parkhurst for permission to do that. Signs hung with duct tape or other adhesives that may harm the walls will be removed immediately, and publicity is never allowed on glass. So we should not be blocking sight for anyone walking through any glass doors or things like that.
Apologies, I was still muted. In a normal year, organizations would be allowed to travel or use college vehicles if they go through the appropriate request and approval process. Those things are not allowed this year, unfortunately. If your organization thinks you have something really special going on and you would like to request an exemption to that, email csi@franklincollege.edu. And I think I may have said year. We know they are not allowed for this semester. It's possible that could change for next semester.
Copier services, each organization can give 3 students and an advisor permission to use the college's paper cut printing system. Only those people will be able to copy or print from your organization. And once in an organization's 3 people are approved, a box will appear on the computer or copy screen asking you to select a budget. And so you'll select the organization account and then proceed. Large amount of copies and large posters can be requested through copier services on MyFC. So if you are wanting to print like a butcher block size poster, but you want to design it on the computer instead of hand draw it, you can have those printed largely by charging it to your organization's account through copier services on MyFC. Or maybe you want to print off like 100 of something. That's another instance where you could go through copier services. The CSI is our office, it's our home. All student organizations are encouraged to utilize the CSI. We have storage units, filing cabinets, a project area for publicity, computers, copiers, and a variety of items you may want to borrow. Please ask a staff person or work study student in the CSI if you have questions about the space. All presidents will eventually have ID access for after hours. We promise that within the first 4 weeks of every semester. So right now, while you all are verifying rosters, we will then go in a week or so and grant that access. Please do not remove reusable items from the CSI, tape, scissors, staplers, etc. Sometimes they just go missing and we hope that's not intentional, it's just accidents, but please make sure you're only leaving with things such as your completed project or publicity. We do have some additional CSI guidelines right now. So when you walk into our space, it should be pretty obvious that it is different and feels different. We have some social distancing stickers. So if you are coming to visit Kendra and there are other people in there talking to Kendra, please utilize those floor markers. We also are only allowing 2 people in the project area at a time to work on publicity, and any used supplies that you use while you're in there needs to be put in our used supply bucket so we can disinfect those items.
If you want to purchase items for an event or something that your organization is doing, there are a few different ways that you can do that. One of our options is to utilize Walmart free grocery pickup. So for that, you will go to grocery.walmart.com, add all the items to your cart that you would like to purchase, and then schedule a time to come see Kendra in the CSI, and she'll put the credit card information in for you. Then you'll select a time to go pick up those items from Walmart. So that one works out really well. We also do a lot of ordering from Amazon. So you can submit a list of items from Amazon to Kendra for her to order. If you're doing that, it's really helpful if you can send her a link to the exact item and tell her the quantity, the color, any other details she needs to know to place the accurate order, rather than just saying, I want a hat. Be a little more specific, tell her what kind of hat, what color, what size, all that fun stuff. You are also welcome to purchase things on your own and submit a reimbursement request through the business office, and we can help you out with that process if you need. Finally, you can submit a list of items to Kendra, and she will go shopping at a store up to once per week for those items. Again, you'll want to be pretty specific with what items you want her to purchase for you when you give her a list. For all of those purchasing options, please make arrangements 2 weeks in advance, especially if you need something shipped here or you're asking Kendra to help you out with your purchase. We need some advance notice to make sure she has the time needed to help you out with that and the time needed to get the item shipped here and all of that. Whenever you make a purchase, whichever method you use, please make sure to save your receipts. That's super important for requesting funds and record keeping and all of that. There is more information about all those purchasing options in the Student Org resource guide. So if you forget what your options are, just check back there for more info. Prizes and gifts. About a year ago, we got some new policies college-wide in relation to prizes and gifts, and those apply to student organizations as well. Organizations may give out prizes for participating in an event or survey or a program, but those prizes have to be $25 or less, and no gift cards are allowed. This is especially true if you're utilizing your student activities fee allocation, if your organization is funded by Student Congress. If your organization gets funding from money from the college in some other way, that is still going to be true for you. If you have a prize that someone wants to donate to you, it is okay for that to be over $25, but if you're using any college money to purchase a prize, it cannot be over $25 and it cannot be a gift card. This includes if you're purchasing t-shirts for org members or sweatshirts, those need to be $25 or less per member. And one other item that might be confusing, vouchers to the Starbucks, the Grizzly Cafe in the Student Center are not allowed. At one point, I thought those were allowed. I used those as a prize for a program and was told later they were not allowed. So we all learned from that mistake, and please do not take the fact that we did that at the beginning of last year to mean that's okay. Unfortunately, that is not allowed. So come up with an alternative prize if you're thinking about that.
Charitable giving, in addition to the prize protocols that were released last year, we released some new protocols and policies for charitable giving as it pertains to the activity fee. So for those that are funded only by the activity fee or have used activity fee for things like this in the past, this is important. So we do love that so many of you raise money for charitable causes, but we need to be careful and make sure that no student activities fee money is donated to a nonprofit organization. So if you host an event to raise money and charge other student organizations participation or entry fees, you must either use the fees that the other organizations pay, your org for event operation costs, or tell other organizations that you plan to donate the participation or entry fees that they pay, and then those organizations must use or pool personal money for their participation fees rather than organizational funds. So this has some tax implications, and there's other implications that this is technically part of a student's tuition. So we need to be careful not to donate a large sum of tuition, basically tuition dollars and fees to nonprofit orgs, and keep it more so for event operations and programming.
We have a few special resources available to you all this semester considering the coronavirus. Those include 4 portable hand sanitizer stations. They are little black posts that currently have a spray bottle attached to them. The spray bottle might look like cleaning spray, but it is spray that you can spray on your hands and use as hand sanitizer. We are working on maybe getting pump bottles instead, so it's a little more obvious. But for now, know that that is hand sanitizer. We also have some social distancing floor markers that are on little Frisbee style things that you can place on the ground at an event. There are 3 large tents set up on campus that student organizations can reserve. 2 of those are in Klein Woods and 1 is over by Von Ball. So you would ask your advisor to reserve those the same way they would reserve a building or a room on campus. And there are some chairs in each of those tents that you will get a code to unlock the chairs and be able to set those up and use them if you want to use one of those tents for an outdoor event or meeting. We've also purchased a pro Zoom account that allows you to have up to 300 participants in a meeting and make sure you don't have any time limits. So student organizations are welcome to use that for virtual events as well. You can request all of these when you're registering your event, whether it's in person or virtual. You can tell us if you'd like to take advantage of any of these items. As we've mentioned, it's important to fill out that event registration form at least 2 weeks before your event for any event. But if you want to use these items, that's just extra incentive to make sure you're filling it out as soon as possible so that you can have access to these items.
Some of you may know or may not know what Grizzly is. In the past, it's been sort of a student organization leadership workshop series that we have planned in-house, but we have sort of reimagined what that looks like, especially considering all of the programming guidelines right now. So Grizzly is happening again, but it is a little bit reimagined. Grizzly is now a comprehensive program designed to encourage students to participate in opportunities to learn, engage, assess, and develop as leaders. It's a series promoted by the CSI, but comprised of programs planned by other departments and organizations on campus. So this free program will allow students to take an active role in developing their leadership skills by participating in at least 5 leadership sessions and reflection, 3 hours of virtual or on-campus community service, and holding membership at least one organization. So what is Grizzly really? It's a series that we are going to promote where any student can participate. The incentive is that students who participate in at least 5 programs, one in each of our categories, which I'll explain in a little bit, log at least 3 hours of virtual or on-campus community service and hold membership in at least one org, will earn the title of being a Grizz leader. Students who complete the GrizLife program will receive a certificate at the Student Involvement Awards, and we will give you a leadership pin to wear at your graduation. Participation will be tracked through GrizLife. Students can click on the Experiences tab within Opportunities at the GrizLife homepage to track their GrizLead process. Grizzly will automatically track a student's involvement throughout the year as you scan into events and log your community service and are added to organization rosters. So all you really need to do, or students who participate in Grizzly need to do, is log in to see where they're at in obtaining that status. To find Grizzly programs, there are several avenues. Students can visit the GrizLife app, click tags, and click any Grizzly category, or go to the events tab on the GrizLife software. So the different categories for Grizzly are critical thinking, communication, evaluation, inclusion, and problem solving. And these align directly with the outcomes in the Pursuit, which is our curriculum at Franklin College. And so while we're bringing this up today is because while registering your organization events or activities, you can tag a Grizzly category if you believe your event or activity falls within that specific category. This could help incentivize students to participate in your event or activity, those students who choose to participate in this program. We may delete a Grizzly tag if we feel like it does not match the category well, or we may go in before we click approve on your event and add a tag to the event in case you missed or didn't realize that it would potentially count. GrizLead is something that we reimagined because we really want to almost program less than we're used to. Some feedback we get is that we almost over-program our students, and we want to promote the other forms of involvement that exist on campus beyond student organizations. So our hope is that by students who choose to participate in GrizLead, they'll hopefully be introduced to other programs that exist across the campus. This has not been announced to departments or formally to organizations yet. I'm just giving you a heads up, but you can go ahead and tag GrizLead on GrizLife, a lot of Grizz words, on GrizLife now, and then students will be able to track those and know what it means once we formally announce the program. So Kendra is going to talk a little bit about GrizLife.
So Taylor's talked a lot about GrizLife tonight, and some of you may be pros at it, and some of you may need some training, and that's okay. It's definitely a necessary tool for you to follow the co-curricular guidelines because you are required to register your events, your in-person activities and events, and use the attendance feature. If you're not sure how to do that, no problem. We have trainings coming up. There's one tonight after, so if you can stick around, that would be great. We can put the RSVP in the Zoom chat. I think Taylor's going to do that for us. There's also one this Friday from 3 to 4. And if you're not able to make any of those, you can always call me and I can walk you through something and you can stop by the office. Or in the new experiences tab that Taylor was talking about, there are videos that you can watch that go through basically how to navigate GrizLife from the beginning to the end. So you can you can watch the one on attendance, you can watch the one on how to duplicate a program, all kinds of things. So if you are struggling with that, don't be afraid to reach out. We can definitely help you get your GrizLife training. Oh, sorry, I got a little ahead of myself. These are the different YouTube tutorials for GrizLife. Again, you go to the experiences and the opportunities tab, and you'll see organization or officers trainings to find a link to each tutorial. And these are the different ones that I just mentioned. So if you need help, say you're not sure how to update your officers and your roster, there's a video you can watch that at your convenience that can teach you how to do that.
Hi there, just one moment. I am putting the Zoom links in the chat to register for those sessions that Kendra just mentioned. The first link is for the one this evening, and the second link is for the one on Friday. So be sure to use those to RSVP if you plan to join either of those sessions. Our last bit of content tonight is a little bit of budget information. Typically, the Student Congress Treasurer, this year that's Anna Urton, would give you a presentation right now about how to submit your budget request for the upcoming semester. We're going to make those into 2 separate meetings this year. So we've just got this meeting tonight, and then those of you who are funded by Student Congress will have a separate meeting on October 5th, and I'll give you the time for that in a few minutes here. So if you receive funding from Student Congress, or if you're a new organization and you would like to request funding from Student Congress, you'll need to attend that meeting to get more information about the budget request process for funding for the upcoming semester. Do you mind going to the next slide, Taylor? Thank you. So first up, this is for all organizations. Make sure you're saving copies of all of your receipts, check requests, and any other spending records. That would include if you buy something at Walmart or on Amazon, if you request a check to pay a vendor with a check, or if you fill out a reimbursement request because you bought something for your organization with your own money and you want to be reimbursed. Please save copies of all of those. Some of those you or your advisor will have to turn into the business office. So make sure you make a copy of that and save it before you take it to the business office. If you receive funding through Student Congress, we are going to check those a couple times throughout the year to make sure you are keeping good records. And if you don't receive funding through Student Congress, it's still important to keep those for record keeping purposes. Something that can work really well if you're struggling with how to figure out where to save all those. If you have an iPhone, in the Notes app, there is a function that lets you scan things just like you would take a photo with your phone. So if you aren't sure how to scan things or where to save them, I recommend checking out the Notes app, the scanning feature there. Many of you put together a budget request, a plan for how you're going to spend your money this fall, and the fall doesn't look like we thought it might. So I'm guessing some of the things you plan to spend money on, you might not be doing anymore, and you might be doing some new virtual things instead. So it's okay if the plan you made in the spring is not how you're spending your money now, but I would encourage you all as we start this semester to get together with other leaders of your organization, review your plan from the spring, and make a plan for the rest of the semester so you can have good guidelines as you spend your money as we go through the next few months. Some of you are waiting on some money to be transferred into your accounts based on what you requested in the spring, and that will happen in the next couple of weeks. So if you don't see it there yet, don't worry, it will be coming soon if your organization needs that. For those of you that receive funding from Student Congress or would like to request it, that meeting that I mentioned will be on Monday, October 5th at 8:30 p.m. It'll be on Zoom again, so we'll send out information like a registration link for that shortly. We highly recommend coming at that time if at all possible, so you can ask us any questions you have, but we will record it for anyone who is not available at that time so they can watch it. After that meeting, you will have about 3 weeks to put together your budget request for the spring 2021 semester, and that will require you to tell us what events you plan to have, what money you expect to spend, all that sort of stuff. So I would recommend having a conversation with your fellow organization leaders before October 5th to start thinking about what spring semester might look like for your organization, so you're not scrambling after that budget meeting to get your request put together. Last reminder is screenshots. Those of you who are returning leaders might be familiar with this. All organization presidents, treasurers, and advisors should have right now, or if you don't have it right now, you'll have it soon, access to view your budget on MyFC. Unfortunately, the records from the previous academic year will disappear in the next couple of weeks, so we need each organization leader to take screenshots of your budget information from last year, so we have that on file when it comes time for you to have an audit meeting with the Student Congress Finance Committee about your spending last semester. So Taylor, would you mind making me the host so that I can share my screen and show everyone how to take those screenshots?
I don't see the option to make you a host. So let me look at.
I can just, if you want to pull up your MyFC, I can guide them through it that way as well.
Let's see.
I think you might be able to click on participants and then next to my name, click make host.
It's not showing up. I can give you screenshots though, multiple.
Okay.
There you go. It should work now.
Oh, lovely. Okay. Sorry for the delay, everybody. So to view your budget, you just go to MyFC and then you click on departments over here on the left. If it would like to load for me. There we go. And then you click on business operations. And then over here on the right side, hopefully our videos are not blocking it. You should just see the budget numbers for organizations that you are a leader of. I see lots of different numbers. So to take these screenshots that I mentioned, you're going to click on the link that says 2019 next to your student organization budget number. And when I say screenshots, I do mean multiple screenshots. You should not, just taking a screenshot of this page that shows up right here is not enough. We need you to click into each of these categories. So I will click into printing and copier services, and then I will take a screenshot of this page right here. And I'll do the same with every category. You are welcome to skip fund balance and student congress allocation, but every other, you should take a screenshot of this page right here, the summary page, and then you need to click into each category and take a screenshot so that we can know what transactions you had and how much you spent within each category. Once you've taken all of those screenshots, I recommend inserting them all into a Word document and just saving that one Word document so that you have it when you need it, when the budget request process starts off. So many of you have that access right now. If you don't, you should have it by the end of the week. If you do not have access to see your organization's budget by Monday, please just send me an email with your name and the name of the student organization that you need budget access for. These screenshots are just necessary for those of you that are funded through Student Congress or would like to request funding through Student Congress. And please make sure to take and save those screenshots to your computer by the end of next week, because like I mentioned, that information will disappear soon. That's all on budgets. If you have any questions about funding from Student Congress, you can talk to Anna Urton or myself.
Alrighty, well that concludes all of our information for today's organization meeting. If you have officers that could not be present, we will upload this onto GrizLife and can track who has watched it and who has not watched it. So we expect those officers that couldn't make it today to please go on and watch that video. And just to clarify, the screenshots and things like that that Beth just mentioned are for those groups that are requesting funds from Congress or are currently using activities fee money as well. So we want to make sure that you're tracking student activity fee money appropriately, and when you're requesting for spring, you have an accurate account of what was spent and what you plan to spend for this upcoming semester as well. That's all we have for you, and we hope you have a great night. And again, if you want to be trained on GrizLife, we're going to do that at 8 p.m. and the link to RSVP and access that training should be in the chat. Alrighty. I will leave this up for a little bit in case any of you want to try and find that link.